My husband said, "You're nothing without me," so I made sure he lost everything he owned. Monica's skin tingled as she reached for her mug, the familiar warmth a small comfort in the bustling backyard. The sun cast long shadows over the lawn where families lounged, children darting between clusters of neighbors. She had brought her worn green cardigan, curling its sleeves around her wrists, a cocoon against more than the autumn chill. Her planner sat on a folding chair beside her, open to a page marked with bright blue circles and neat handwritten notes, the blueprint for the community reading club she believed could bridge gaps and spark joy. But today, her hopes felt fragile, like the delicate ceramic in her hands. Brad's voice cut through the hum of chatter, loud and sharp as a slap. "You couldn't pull that off. You're nothing without me," he declared, each word dripping with cruel certainty. He didn't just say it quietly. He projected it for the entire yard, the words launching like darts aimed precisely at her. Monica's heart flickered to a stop as heat flooded her cheeks. Eyes swiveled in their direction, some curious, some uncomfortable. She saw the twitch of lips in forced smiles, whispers curling like smoke. Her grip tightened around the mug, knuckles whitening. The mug slipped, toppling onto the patio stones. It cracked against the uneven surface, a harsh echo that seemed to underscore the fracture between her envisioned future and this ruthless reality. The planner shifted, pages fluttering open, the circled proposal glaring at the sun, an innocent witness to her shaming. Monica stood stiffly, brushing shattered shards aside, aware of every gaze anchoring her in place. Brad's smug grin deepened as he moved away, his laughter trailing behind him like a cruel soundtrack. For a moment, Monica's world narrowed to the scattered fragments of her broken mug and the blue-circled page. But beneath the sting, something flickered, a quiet ember refusing to be smothered. She swallowed the taste of humiliation, the loud pulse of doubt, and bent down to gather her papers with deliberate care. Neighbors shifted uncomfortably, but none offered a word. Yet in that silence, Monica caught a flicker, a hesitant glance from Mrs. Calder, who'd always seemed too polite to say much, yet had quietly handed Monica a rare handwritten note about the local library's unused space just last week. A detail, a thread to tug at, a small clue that might yet weave a different story. Monica folded the page with careful fingers, sliding it securely inside her planner. The cool weight of the book grounded her resolve. Nothing about today felt easy, but beneath the sharp edge of Brad's dismissal, a silent choice formed. She would not be what he said, not today, not ever. As laughter and conversations continued around her, Monica's gaze sharpened. The path ahead was uncertain, but the first step was clear. She would forge her worth, not in his shadow, but in her own steady light. The PTA meeting room hummed with low chatter and the rustling of papers as parents settled into folding chairs. Monica's fingers instinctively curled around the frayed cuffs of her green cardigan, drawing a small comfort from the familiar fabric. She bit back the nervous flutter in her stomach as the discussion turned to the fall fundraiser, a critical event she had hoped to lead this year. But when the topic shifted to the budget spreadsheet, Monica's mind blanked for a split second, the numbers jumbling together like an unsolvable puzzle. Before she could gather herself, Brad barked from the back of the room, loud enough for all to hear, "Guess who forgot again?" His voice cut sharply, dripping with derision. He didn't even look her way, eyes locked on the committee chair. A ripple passed through the group, some awkward coughs, a few hesitant glances exchanged. Monica's cheeks burned, and her hands tightened in the lap of her cardigan. The cold draft from the cracked window pressed against her skin, harsh and invasive, as if the room itself was shrinking. Through the blur of embarrassment, Monica caught Principal Dawes's eye. The principal's gaze was soft, a silent encouragement buried beneath the formality of her nod. But then, Dawes's attention swiftly pivoted to the looming deadline pinned on the bulletin board, the school's annual bake sale. Scheduled for Saturday, just 4 days away, the date lingered ominously, reminding Monica there was no margin for error. Later that evening, after the house settled into silence and the last of the dishes were washed, Monica received a text from Dawes, concise but urgent. The school had just been notified of a rare opportunity, a grant that could fund the reading club Monica dreamed of starting. But the catch was clear. The entire application had to include precise and verifiable budget notes to meet the grant committee's requirements. And the submission deadline was firm: Monday at noon. No extensions. Monica's pen hovered over her notepad, the weight of the timetable pressing down with every heartbeat. The worn fabric of her cardigan felt cooler now, wrapping her like a shield against the rising tide of pressure. Doubt gnawed quietly at the edges of her resolve, but beneath it, a flicker of something steadier grew. A determination not just to survive this challenge, but to prove she could rise beyond Brad's relentless dismissals. She stared at the fading light outside the window, shadows lengthening across the yard, and whispered to herself, "I have to try." Every tick of the clock became a reminder that the path ahead would be difficult, yet unmistakably real. If she could meet this deadline, complete the budget notes with precision, and show the school and herself that she was more than Blad's cutting words, maybe the tide would shift. In the quiet pause between days, Monica folded the sleeves of her cardigan tight around her wrists and let out a breath. The coming days would demand everything she had. But for the first time in a long while, a small beacon of hope glowed just beneath the surface, giving her the courage to face it head-on. If a moment like this ever hit close to home, I'd love to hear how you found your way forward. Monica sat alone at their small kitchen table late one evening, the faint hum of a dishwasher washing away in the background. Her laptop glowed with unanswered emails, each to a local business she hoped might sponsor the reading club. One by one, replies came back, polite but firm declines, or worse, no response at all. The blue cursor blinked mockingly on the draft of her grant proposal as she stared at budgets and goals that suddenly felt impossibly out of reach. Two of the committee members had quietly stepped away, their reasons vague, one citing personal conflicts, the other lost in paperwork. But Monica knew Brad's influence. He had hinted at her supposed incompetence during a casual chat with them at church, planting doubts like silent seeds. The room felt colder than before, the faded linoleum underfoot reflecting the dim kitchen light, and her hope seemed to thin further, like smoke dissipating through a cracked window. She clutched the green cardigan tighter, the fabric worn but somehow comforting in its quiet familiarity. For a moment, the finger hovering over the keyboard wavered. She almost deleted the entire proposal. "Maybe I'm right," she whispered to herself. "Maybe this is too much." Her phone buzzed suddenly, startling her from the funk. The sudden vibration sharp in the quiet. It was a message from Joel, the neighbor she had barely noticed before. His tone careful, almost hesitant. He told her he had overheard Brad at the local pub bragging about moving club money into his own business account for safekeeping. Joel's words carried weight. They hinted at hidden financial maneuvering, a thread Monica hadn't seen but could now pull on. The kitchen didn't feel quite so cold anymore. Joel's heads-up was a lifeline, proof that the things Brad said publicly weren't the whole story. Monica's fingers found certainty again as she scrolled through the grant paperwork. There, in the fine print, a footnote jumped out. Spousal assets must be disclosed if funds are commingled. It meant everything. If she could prove the club's money was not mixed with Brad's, she had a solid ground to stand on. The thought sparked a small warmth in her chest, a reason to dig deeper, to keep fighting. Monica pulled the cardigan more tightly around herself and leaned forward into the glow of the screen. Somewhere beneath the exhaustion and doubt, a fire simmered. "I can do this," she breathed. The first glimmer of hope had arrived, quiet but undeniable, cutting through the shadows of her struggles. Sunday evening settled like a heavy blanket over Monica's small kitchen, the pale light from outside fading to gray, shadows stretching long across the tile floor. The grant papers were a chaos of crumpled edges and scribbled notes, strewn across the counter and spilling onto the floor near the sink. Monica kneeled, her fingers trembling as she gathered the mess, the weight of exhaustion pressing down like a stone in her chest. Nearby, a sharp crack echoed as her favorite mug, the one from her very first teaching job, chipped but cherished, slipped from her grasp and shattered against the cold floor. Brad appeared in the doorway with a smirk tight around his lips, his face lit only by the dull kitchen bulb. "You'd drown without my help," he said casually, the words slipping out with practiced ease, like a rehearsed barb meant to keep her small and uncertain. A sharp sting of burnt coffee rose in the air from a forgotten cup on the table, mixing oddly with the metallic coldness of the broken ceramic. Monica knelt lower, the jagged shard cool against her palm as she steadied herself. The scent of burnt coffee clawed at her senses just before her eyes landed on something unusual, half hidden behind the fridge. A faded manila folder, worn at the edges but intact. Her heart skipped. She pulled the folder free, the rustle of paper soft but promising. Inside were the bank statements and transfer slips she had meticulously kept over the years. The original joint account opened to seed the reading club's funds. Unlike Brad's business account, Monica's name stood alone on every slip. Clear, untangled evidence. Her breath caught in her throat as the realization spread. She had something concrete, something Brad had overlooked or assumed she wouldn't find. The kitchen felt smaller, yet heavier, a space defined by the fragile forms of broken things and hidden truths. Monica's hands tightened on the folder, the papers crisp beneath her fingers, offering a fragile promise in the storm of doubt and dismissal Brad wielded so easily. For a long moment, silence filled the room, except for the distant hum of traffic and the slow, steady beat of her own breathing. The pieces were here, scattered but retrievable, like the shards of her shattered mug, broken but not beyond repair. A quiet resolve rose in Monica, steadier now, pushing back the weariness. Tomorrow would demand every ounce of her courage, every note precise, every detail accounted for. The path ahead was raw and narrow, but she glimpsed a way forward through the cracks. "If a moment like this ever hit close to home, I'd love to hear how you found your way forward." Monica sat at her dining table, the soft glow of the desk lamp casting long shadows over the piles of paperwork she'd gathered. Carefully, she scanned each receipt and bank statement, double-checking the dates and amounts against her meticulously kept records. Her hands trembled slightly as she organized the transfer slips, each one a small but vital piece of proof. The club's seed money was hers alone, never touched by Brad's business accounts. The folder felt like a lifeline, heavy with possibility. She composed a detailed email to Principal Dawes, attaching scans of every document and highlighting the critical footnote in the grant application about spousal assets, needing disclosure only if funds were commingled. Every line was precise, measured, no room for ambiguity. Monica knew the clock was unforgiving. Monday at noon was her last chance to submit the application. Missing that deadline meant losing everything she'd hoped to build. Her phone buzzed with a message from Joel. The neighbor's quiet support had become a steady presence, a reminder that she wasn't completely alone in this battle. Joel offered to serve as a witness should anyone question the separation of funds. A simple act, but one that fortified her case with credibility. She imagined Joel's calm face and nodding approval, a quiet pillar in the storm. In the dim kitchen, Monica wrapped the green cardigan tighter around her shoulders, the fabric comforting like a shield as she envisioned the risks ahead. If her claim failed, Brad's control would deepen. Not only would the grant be lost, but so too would her fragile spark of independence, the social trust she'd begun to earn. The stakes pressed down harder than ever. Making's decision to stand firm required every ounce of her resilience. Monica's lingering doubts tangled with a newfound clarity. This wasn't just about money or recognition. It was about reclaiming her dignity, piece by piece. She sighed, exhaling steady resolve into the quiet house, ready to face whatever came next. Monday at noon loomed, a countdown marked by whispered hopes, and the unshakable belief that one careful truth could unravel years of quiet dismissal. Monday morning arrived with a chill that seeped through the cracks of the school's aging doors. Monica walked into the conference room carrying her worn green cardigan draped over her arm. The familiar weight of her color-coded planner and the manila folder filled with transfer slips tucked under one elbow. The late autumn sunlight filtered through blinds, casting sharp lines across the polished conference table where the school board was already seated, their faces lined with both curiosity and measured skepticism. Taking a slow breath, Monica laid the folder and planner neatly before the panel. Each piece of paper carried silent testimony, scanned bank statements marked with her name alone, detailed receipts tracing every cent meant for the club's seed money. The weight of years of Brad's quiet interference seemed to settle on the room, palpable in the sharp intake of breath from a few board members. Her voice was steady, precise as she explained the situation. She spoke of the grant's stipulation that spousal assets only needed disclosure if funds were commingled, a clause Brad had attempted to exploit by secretly moving club money into his own business account. Monica produced Joel's written statement, verifying that Brad's stories of safekeeping were not just misleading, but a calculated effort to control the funds. Principal Dawes sat close by, her eyes widening with visible relief and gratitude as she realized Monica's evidence dismantled Brad's claims. Brad, uncharacteristically silent, shuffled papers in front of him, the usual confidence stripped away to reveal uncertainty. When pressed, his voice cracked. "I was just protecting our assets." But even his own hesitation betrayed the unraveling of his defense. The board exchanged glances, a knowing shift in their expressions recognizing deception rather than protection. One member nodded solemnly. "The evidence is clear. Brad's interference jeopardized the club's funding unfairly." Another leaned forward, adding, "This kind of manipulation cannot be overlooked." Monica's heart quickened, not from fear, but from a growing sense of justice. The board chairman looked directly at Monica, solemn yet affirming. "Your case is compelling. Monica, the grant will proceed under your stewardship." Around the table, approving murmurs followed. Monica's carefully prepared proof had turned a tide of doubt into conviction. Brad's shoulders slumped, the veneer of dominance peeling away as the room sided firmly with Monica. The school's atmosphere shifted. The balance of power was no longer his to command. Principal Dawes reached over, offering a supportive squeeze on Monica's hand. A simple act, but one filled with unspoken respect and solidarity. As the meeting concluded, Monica tucked her documents away, a quiet smile brushing her lips. The storm of years spent in Brad's shadow was breaking, replaced by light, stirring promise beneath it. Each step now echoed with newfound strength. When dignity finally speaks, who tends to listen in your world? The room buzzed softly with anticipation as Monica stepped up once more to address the school board, this time in a new light. No longer overlooked or questioned, but recognized and respected. The large windows framed autumn light, golden and warm, as the members settled in their seats, eyes fixed on her. The atmosphere was charged with a mix of hope and resolve. Monica laid her color-coded planner and the folder of evidence on the polished table, a crisp rustle of paper punctuating the silence. She spoke clearly, presenting the final account. Every receipt, every transfer slip, clearly demonstrating her stewardship over the club's funds, untouched by Brad's attempts to divert them. The narrative was precise, grounded in facts, patiently gathered and verified. Stillness filled the room as Principal Dawes handed the paperwork to each board member, her steady gaze full of pride. The chairman's voice cut through the quiet. "This board acknowledges Monica's unwavering commitment and the injustices she faced. The grant is hereby approved in full." Murmurs of assent followed as heads nodded, the weight of Monica's perseverance recognized openly by those who once doubted. Brad sat quietly at the edge of the room, his posture slack and shoulders slumped. The usual confidence that had fragmented Monica's spirit stood diminished. replaced by a rare flicker of remorse and defensiveness. When pressed, he offered a weak explanation. I was trying to protect what's ours. But his words seemed hollow, and the board's patience thinned. One member, voice firm yet fair, condemned Brad's unilateral actions as a breach of trust that jeopardized the community project. Sponsors who had supported Brad's ventures quietly withdrew backing, their loyalty shifting toward Monica's transparent leadership. The ripple effect was immediate and tangible. Monica's courage was featured in the town newsletter the following week, her image alongside a headline praising her resilience. At school, Principal Dawes presented Monica with a new access badge, officially naming her club director for the upcoming year, a symbol not only of authority, but of hard-won respect. As Monica clutched the badge, the weight felt different now. Lighter with hope and the promise of positive change, the long-fought battle had ended, not with bitterness, but with quiet vindication and the beginning of a fresh chapter. The echo of applause lingered as Monica looked up, meeting eyes filled with support. For the first time, she felt truly seen, not as someone defined by another's doubt, but by her own strength. Has anyone ever judged you too soon? Tell me what changed their mind. The morning sun filtered softly through the classroom windows, casting golden light across the carefully arranged circle of chairs. Monica moved quietly among the scattered books and colorful cushions, her favorite ceramic mug filled with steaming tea resting on the windowsill. The green cardigan hugged her shoulders, its worn fabric a gentle reminder of the long journey that had brought her here. The faint scent of paper and crayons mingled with the fresh air drifting in, as small footsteps and whispers began to fill the space. Children trickled in, their faces alight with curiosity and shy smiles. Monica greeted each one with warmth, guiding them toward their seats and handing out picture books with care. The once intimidating crowd of neighbors now seemed eager, even hopeful, gathering at the edges to watch the new reading club's inaugural meeting unfold. The planter outside bloomed early with a cluster of bright daisies mirroring the fresh start cracking open in Monica's heart. She settled into the chair at the circle's edge, feeling the mug's solid weight in her hands. Not just a simple cup, but a symbol of resilience, of a first teaching job long ago that had planted seeds of purpose. Smiling, she looked around at the earnest faces, absorbing the quiet magic of this moment, her moment. The past months of doubt, struggle, and quiet humiliation slipped away, replaced by a gentle confidence shimmering beneath her calm exterior. Monica's thoughts drifted briefly to Brad, the man who once declared she was nothing without him. Now, the weight of his words felt distant, powerless against the clear truth she held. Strength, she realized, did not come from being seen through another's eyes, but from the steady act of standing up for oneself, day by day, with kindness and persistence. Here, in this small room filled with stories and laughter, she was finally defining her own worth. As she began to read aloud, a hush fell over the children, the sound of her voice weaving pictures and dreams. The neighbors outside clapped softly, some approaching with offers to volunteer for the next session, their faces softened by respect and newfound belief. Monica looked at her green cardigan once more, wrapping it tight. The club was more than a program. It was a testament to resilience, justice, and the quiet power of one woman refusing to be nothing again. If a moment like this ever hit close to home, I'd love to hear how you found your way forward. If this story resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button. See you in our next story.